Jax Taylor is a big snowhead. He's in love with a Coco. That's not news. But what's more interesting to me is her response. Hello, my friend, Perez Hilton here, queen of all media, the original influencer, and you know what I think about this Vanderpump Rules alum. I'm more positive these days. I try not to be a see you next Tuesday, but he's just a major D-bag. You can put glitter on a piece of poop, but it'll still smell. Jax was just on Bravo's Hot Mic podcast, and he revealed that he'd been taking the powder for over 22 years. I'll share more of what he has to say, but he alleges that he is sober-ish now. And after making this confession, his baby mama and... did their divorce go through? His ex, Brittany Cartwright, has some very surprising words. She says, I'm glad that he finally admitted to what was really going on. For the first time, I can speak openly about the extent of trauma he's instilled on our family over the years. I've tried desperately to help him without success. I pray that one day he completely knocks this addiction, but I'm skeptical. His behaviors are still alarming, and his treatment plan seems to be the bare minimum. Whoa. So basically, she just said everything that he confessed to, most of it is BS. Then she released a separate statement because people were criticizing her for staying with him for as long as she did. But Brittany says, his addiction has done irreparable damage to my son and I. I've spent years trying to help him. I wish more than anyone I could say how proud I am of him today, but I'd be lying. His actions will speak for themselves. Y'all, next season of The Valley, their current show on Bravo, is gonna be lit in more ways than one. And to those asking why I stayed if I knew he had a problem all these years, Brittany says, you can't help who you fall in love with. I've done absolutely everything in my power to get him the help he desperately needed. Unfortunately, I was naive and believed his empty promises and his pleads to change for years. Once you have a child with someone, it's not easy to leave. It took everything in my power to gather the strength to walk away. Just walk away. For those that have been through similar, you get it. For those that question me, that's okay. I'm in a much better place now. So, take everything that Jax says with a grain of salt. He reveals, I am an addict. I have substance issues, primarily with the C word. Coco. It's hard to say out loud. I've been dealing with this on and off since I was 23, and now I'm 45. There was times where I would stop doing it, but then there were times where I'd go heavy on it. Yeah, we knew that. This is the first time, though, that he's publicly confessed to it, and he says the fans of the show, they could kind of tell I was on something. Obviously, production and other people, they didn't know what I was doing. Everything I was doing was on my own, but I was just on that train and I couldn't get off. He claims that he's now 83 days sober of not just the white powder, but also alcohol. He reveals, people ask you, do you have an alcohol problem too? I don't necessarily think I have an alcohol problem, but the two go hand in hand. I can't do cocoa without drinking, so I just gave up both. I'm proud to say I'm 83 days sober right now, which is the longest I've ever gone in my life without either. According to Jax, he lost control and hit rock bottom last year in January when Brittany broke up with him after 5 years of marriage. Thankfully. He says, "This year was probably the hardest year of my life. I would say my father's death was the hardest year until this year." They're not divorced yet. "I'm going through a divorce right now, which is extremely difficult. When Brittany and I separated, that's when the addiction got worse. I've always been doing it for a long time, but the addiction got worse during my divorce, during my separation." And even though he was texting women after their breakup, he claimed that the moment things got really bad was when he found out that Brittany hooked up with his best friend, Julian. Escándalo. "I was so hurt and angry. It got really bad when I found out that Brittany was hooking up with my friend, Julian, 2 weeks after we separated. I knew in my head that she's been definitely texting him prior because nobody hooks up with somebody that fast, especially a friend of mine. When I heard that, that was my low. And that's when I was doing all the hugs and drinking." So it's her fault, right? No. During that period of using, he says that he amped up his consumption even more. And he would do the cocoa 3 or 4 times a week. "I was going to call every girl because I wanted to hurt her. I didn't care. I was so into the hugs and the alcohol, and I was so upset that she hooked up with my friend," which is ironic because what have I done over the years? I hooked up with my friends' girlfriends too. And let's be honest, I did it to Brittany too. That's why I can't be that angry. But I think it's my ego. My ego gets in the way of everything. It still does. So last year, he checked into rehab to get sober more than once. He explains it didn't happen the first time, it happened the second time. During his first stint, he only lasted 17 days. He says he didn't think another 14 days was going to do anything for him at the time, so he left. However, he only remained sober for a week or 2. Despite leaving early, Jax said that he felt good and got a lot out of it the first time. However, he shared that there was an incident once he got out that changed everything for him. And yes, it involved Brittany. Quote, "Brittany and I were actually on the way to a doctor's appointment for our son, and her phone was connected to my car and a man's name came up. It just triggered me. I did slip after the first incident and I did take substance that night before. I lost it. I went crazy in the car yelling." During his freakout, he remembered that their 3-year-old son, Cruz, was in the back seat witnessing all of this. That's when Jax realized he had a serious problem and needed to get help fast. He also opened up about his anger issues, and he reveals that he is California sober now. He still does a little puff at night to help him sleep. And things with her are not good. Jax says, "We had a little bit of a blow up last night. It's daily. It changes. One day she's happy, one day she's mad. She's probably mad more days than not because she's stuck with you for life. You're the father of her son." But he's trying to be better. He says, "The big thing here is my son. He's my drive, and he's my number 1 driver for this." Seems to me like he's still got a lot more work to do on himself. Thoughts on this all? Especially what she said? I believe her. Should she have kept that to herself? I don't know. A lot to discuss. Let's get into it all in the comments section.